Welcome to Razzball Radio for Tuesday, July 15th. I am your host, Nick Capozzi. Happy All-Star Game. And on today's show, we've got so many people on. I'm worried the canoe's going to tip. So without further ado, let's get right to it. Where is he? There he is. Dano. What's up, Dano from Razzball?
Good morning. How you doing?
Hey, man. I am fantastic. Welcome to Razzball Radio on the Fantasy Sports Network and Cablevision in New York City, your hometown.
Yeah, it is.
Absolutely. Okay. Dano is our OPS guy over at Razzball.com. You can follow him on Twitter at RotoBanter. All right, we're talking OPS risers and fallers today now that we're at the mid-season point, correct?
That is correct.
All right, let's get to some guys who have the opportunity to improve on what they've done in OPS play. Talk to me about Freddie Freeman.
Yeah, Freddie Freeman is the real deal. And
yes, he is.
I would talk about him even more in dynasty leagues because he's 24 years old. And I feel like I keep seeing on Roto World, they keep saying he's like 28 or 29, but he's 24 years old. And he is an OPS monster. So in OPS leagues, or really any league format, the guy's the real deal from an on-base percentage, or from an OPS perspective, both his on-base and slugging is, ideal. The counting stats are there other than the stolen bases. So he's the real deal. I would target him in dynasty leagues and redraft leagues. And probably along with Christian Yelich are kind of my favorite undervalued OPS guys.
Okay, good tip.
Yeah, Christian Yelich, he's only 22, and he's not getting on base at a huge rate, but those guys in dynasty OPS leagues for sure are absolute targets. They're the real deal. Christian Yelich, he's got a really gross ground ball rate, but he's got so much speed where it doesn't really kill you. And he's got a pretty impressive home run to fly ball ratio. So when he does put the ball in the air, they often get hit for home runs approaching a 20% rate. So Christian Yelich, Freddie Freeman, both under the age of 25, and absolute OPS targets.
Go get him. Okay, another guy you have on the list, and I might box with you here on this one a little bit. You got George Springer here, and here's my argument with OPS. Have you seen his K rate?
Yeah,
this is Rob Deer country.
It is gross. I think he's got like the fifth worst swinging, whiff rate in all of baseball. So it's gross. But that is the only thing separating him and Yasiel Puig.
Come on, man.
Yeah. Telling you,
Dano, I cannot have this conversation with you if you're going to compare George Springer to Puig.
I'm ready to box. From a counting stats perspective, home run and stolen bases, he is and can outdo Puig all year this year. By next year, there's some, I won't call it unlucky BABIP right now, but by next year he can have an identical OPS to Yasiel Puig with some BABIP inflation and some BABIP drop off from Yasiel Puig. So I honestly, if I had Puig, and I love Puig, on the last podcast I brought him up, and I think he's better than last year because his stuff's sustainable now. But I would trade Puig for Springer and some other value for my team. I would.
You know what? This is the last time Dano will be joining us on Razzball Radio on the Fantasy Sports Network.
If you need to fill out some positions, and someone's willing to trade you Springer for Puig with other guys.
Yeah, the other guy being Mike Trout. All right, let's get to some guys that you are down on from an OPS perspective. You got the snack attack here. Matt Adams, talk to me.
Well, I like Matt Adams a lot. I'm not concerned that he's going to lose playing time either. So I like Matt Adams. Let me preface everything with that.
Okay.
I like Matt Adams so much. I hope somehow the Mets and Cardinals can work out a deal. But Colton Wong is finally picking it up, so I don't think they'll have too much interest in Murphy. Anyway, really the only thing with Matt Adams is he's a big fella, and his BABIP is like approaching 380. That is sure to drop off even with his line drive rate. So when I look at OPS and OPS risers and fallers, the high-level approach is basically I'm looking at, in this case, power and BABIP. And guys who can fall off in both of those stats. So Matt Adams, when it comes to BABIP, has a pretty distinguishable rate between BABIP and expected BABIP. That's about a 40-point drop off. So I think his OPS will drop by, I think, 40 to 50 points. And I think even his home run rate's okay. We're not going to see a huge drop off there. It's not like Charlie Blackmon, where there's a 5 home run difference between home run and expected home run. But Matt Adams, from a BABIP perspective, I mean, it was like Freddie Freeman last year. I think he had a 380 BABIP. That's just going to drop.
Okay, so speaking of Charlie Blackmon, let's talk about him now. He's a guy who looks like he's arrived this year due to the increased playing time. Obviously, the fast start was not sustainable, but you also have him as a dropper here in the shifting sands of OPS risers and fallers.
Yeah, and I like Blackmon still. And, I think on the last podcast, he still had like a 92% contact rate, which was obviously not sustainable. But I think of him as a poor man's Michael Brantley. Probably a little more realistic from a BABIP perspective. So right. I don't think it's a big difference. Finally, he's at a level where I wouldn't be surprised if he maintains a 300, 310 BABIP. But I think, on my list, he's like top 5 difference between actual home runs and expected home runs. So basically, on a plate appearance level, how much contact he makes in his plate appearances, how many outfield fly balls he hits, and how many of those go for home runs. There's about a 5 home run difference. And I think, Albert Pujols and 1 or 2 other guys are the only guys that have more actual home runs relative to what I would expect. So
you know what I love about talking to you? Sorry, Dan, I interrupted you, but you know what I love talking about with you? There's no one that geeks out on data as much as you, man. It's absolutely fantastic. All right, we got about 30 seconds here, so just wrap it up on Mr. Blackmon.
I like him. He's a poor man's Michael Brantley. So, he's heating up again too. So maybe you have the chance to sell high. I wouldn't just sell him for nothing, but a good chance he drops off naturally.
Okay, good stuff. So he is Dan, the man from Razzball, covers our OPS for us. You can follow him on at Roto Banter, forgive me. And of course, guys, if you got OPS questions, especially when it comes to Dynasty and Keeper Leagues, you want to communicate with this guy. Dan, thanks for joining us today, buddy, on Razzball Radio on the Fantasy Sports Network. We'll be right back. We got Sagnoff Mike and Smokey. Welcome back to Razzball Radio on the Fantasy Sports Network. Told you we had a lot of guests today. Next up, I just made a call to the pen. We got Smokey Arlugi out of the bullpen. Smokey, welcome to Razzball Radio on the Fantasy Sports Network, brother.
Hey, Nick. What's going on, buddy?
Nothing. Listen, lots of bullpen stuff to get to that we need to talk about. It is the All-Star break, so lots of potential trades happening real soon. Let's get right to it. What's happening in Detroit? Because both Street and Benoit have played really well, but they're both being shopped. How do you see that situation breaking down in San Diego?
Well, I think the situation in San Diego is I think one gets dealt, and Street is optimally, I think, the more viable candidate to get traded, only because I think they'll get more of a return for him. His contract is more friendly than Benoit's. Benoit actually makes more money than him, and Street makes $7 million. Benoit makes $8 million, and he's got 2 options for $8 million after this. So I think Street is the better return for San Diego to get prospects in return.
So where do you see as a potential landing spot for him?
I mean, there's a couple teams that have been listed. I mean, there's the Angels are looking for a veteran.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah, the Angels could be looking. The Orioles could need a bullpen guy, and believe it or not, the Pirates actually are looking for a decent veteran to help Melanson in the back of the bullpen.
Okay, out in Philadelphia, Jonathan Papelbon wants to play for a winner. How do you see his situation shaking out? A lot of money is still owed there.
Yeah, he's basically going to cry his way out of town, and I think he's going to take Utley and J-Roll with him. The Phillies should just go in full punt. I mean, Amaro's probably going to lose his job at the end of the season, so he might as well save face and just get rid of everything. The only place I can really see Papelbon going for a team that is going to spend money is probably the Angels. I think the Angels are probably going to be committed and try to keep up with the Athletics, and they don't have the starting pitching that the Athletics can bolster, but their bullpen they need some work there, and I think Papelbon will give them that edge.
When you do have questions about bullpens, you want to tweet this guy up at Smokey SMOKEY _Loogie LOOGY. That wasn't difficult. Joe Nathan having a slight resurgence in Detroit. Can he be effective as a fantasy closer again, or is it just time to move on?
he went through that rocky period. I don't know. We discussed it in previous podcasts. That I think it was just the age and the use that he was going through.
Smokey. This is not a podcast. We're on television on the Fantasy Sports Network, Cablevision in New York, channel 147. You want Fantasy Sports Network in other parts of the country? Call your local cable provider. Make it happen, people.
Yeah. Call Jim Dolan. He needs the money from Carmelo.
Joe Nathan.
Yeah. He was kind of forgotten about there for a while because he was doing really bad. And over the last 30 days, he's got 6
quality
saves.
Analysis.
Yeah, totally. It's, dynamite stuff here. That broadcasting school is really paying off. But, he's got 6 saves over the last 30 games. I mean, that doesn't look like it's great, but look at where he came from. He was basically dropped in a lot of leagues, and people are just going by his name right now. So if you can steal him from somebody, if you're desperate for saves, I think Nathan might be a great steal candidate from here on out. The Tigers are playing very, very good ball right now. I mean, just look at the standings 30 days ago when they were 5.5 games back of the Royals. Now they're, 3.5 above the Royals, right. I believe? I mean, they're playing just way above them right now, and their starting pitching is mellowing out. I mean, Verlander is going to mellow because if you had Kate Upton, I'd mellow too. But, I think Nathan is a good buy low guy if you can catch an owner sleeping.
Okay, Aroldis Chapman, since he came back from injury, has been absolutely lights out. Do you think he's going to, in a long term, so let's talk dynasty keeper, is he going to stay in the pen, or is there a chance that he ever moves up to the rotation?
I think he's a closer. I don't see him jumping to starting pitching and being hurt. I think it'll hurt him if they try to convert him back into a starting pitcher like they did a couple spring trainings ago. Chapman's numbers this year, I don't know if anybody's actually looked at stats or they just say, oh, look, Aroldis Chapman, he's from Cuba. He's probably good. But his numbers this year, he's K'ing 54% of the batters he sees. That's over half. His K per 9 rate is 18.2. Now, I was a little bored yesterday and today. I went all the way back to 1980. He's only got 30 innings pitched this year because he started the year on the injury reserve.
Right.
But he projects to have about 60, 65 innings for the whole year. If he finishes the year anything close to 18.2, he's going to finish with the highest K per 9 rate of all time.
Okay, that is some quality fantasy analysis. So the takeaway here is go get Joe Nathan for 50 cents on the dollar and hold Aroldis Chapman by any means necessary. Okay, you mentioned the Angels might be shopping for a closer. What's the status right now on Joe Smith's job in Anaheim?
Joe Smith has been doing a hell of a job in the last 30 days. I mean, he's got 10 saves. He's tied for the league with basically the top guys in the save category, Kimbrels, and I believe Chapman has 10 as well. He's doing a great job. If they brought in a veteran closer, he's a guy who sticks with what he's got. So I think Smith would stay there for a while until he stubbed his toe.
All right. You know what I love about having you on live from Hoboken is all the ambient noise, the trucks rolling in the background. Any Carlos Bakery trucks there we should be aware of?
No, there's the line started this morning though. I saw it this morning.
Yeah, absolutely.
All the tourists from Iowa with their cameras taking pictures of baked goods.
Don't knock Iowa. Okay, so listen, Smokey, we are coming through Hoboken on Razzball's 32 fantasy football draft parties, 32 straight days, all 32 pro football cities powered by the Fantasy Sports Network. That is a mouthful, but we are in Hoboken at the Black Bear Bar and Grill on Thursday, August 21st at noon. Come out and hang with us and get information at razzballtour.com. That night, we head over to New York City for our draft party, and that is going to be at Duke's in Murray Hill in New York City. So Smokey will be there. Smokey, I'm worried that people, when they see you up close, unshaven, the scars across your face, you might scare them.
You say hello to the bad guy. That's all it is. That's the Scarface. It's work hazards. But I'm really a well-mannered, soft-spoken guy. Once you get to know me, I curse with the best of them and I drink with a few of them.
He took a crowbar to the face. All right, listen, appreciate the bullpen help. He is Smokey, our loogie out of the pen. We'll be back with more after this, including Mike Sagnoff. We're going to talk about some thefty Steelers you want to take a peek at. And I'm talking, of course, Bay Steelers, not Pittsburgh Steelers. We're still talking baseball. So we'll be right back. Razzball Radio on Fantasy Sports Network. Welcome back to Razzball Radio on the Fantasy Sports Network. Told you we had a jam-packed show. No lying. Now we've got our steals expert, Sagnoff Mike. You can follow him on Twitter at 643ball. Michael, welcome to Razzball Radio on the Fantasy Sports Network. How are you today?
Hey, Nick. How you doing?
Good. Well, it's All-Star break, so not a lot going on. So we're going to talk about some thefties you want to keep an eye out on. Let's start in the outfield. Eric Young is 17% owned. He's had an up-and-down season for the Mets. What are your thoughts on him going forward?
Besides the playing time concerns, I think he's pretty solid. The 236 average, you're going to have to swallow that.
Yes, you will.
But he's got, what's he got? 25 stolen bases.
Before he got hurt, he was up there. He was ahead of Rajai Davis and guys like that. So he was off to a really good start. He was hitting at the top of the lineup for the Mets. But what do you see him doing rest of the season?
I think he could get another 20 steals for it. I think he could be another 45 steal guy this year, as long as he stays healthy and gets the at-bats.
Is he going to get the at-bats with the Mets?
I think so. I don't think Chris Young is, going to factor in so much. And, Lagares has already been hurt once. And, I think he's going to maybe, even if he pinch hits or pinch runs once in a while, like a Jared Dyson type, he'll still get you the steals. So if you're going for steals, cheap ones, he's going to get you 40-plus, I think, again this year, just like last year.
Absolutely. Here's a guy I would rather have. He's only 12% owned. The Mariners, James Jones. How do you see him performing rest of the season if you're looking for steals? Because at 12% ownership, he's a guy you can go get in most leagues.
Yeah. He's a rookie, so you're kind of playing with fire a little bit there, but he's hitting for a much better average than Young is. And he's hitting at the top of the Mariners lineup pretty consistently.
And the Mariners lineup has, gone past our expectations this year.
Absolutely, yeah. So, better lineup, better position in the lineup, more consistently. I think he's only been caught once or twice, too. So I think he's a pretty solid option. But he's probably not going to be able to give you as consistent steals as Young would. But he's going to maybe be a better all-around player for your fantasy lineup.
Absolutely. I think I would actually take James Jones in that situation just because he will balance out a little bit more. One more outfielder real quick, just 30 seconds here on Jared Dyson. Only 2% owned, and every day in the player rater, in the Hittertron, of course, one of the tools at Razzball.com, which projects that day's hitting streams. And yes, you do want to stream hitters. It's worth your time. You want to stack those stat cats. So Jared Dyson, the only question with him always comes down to playing time. What do you see him getting second half of the season?
With a guy like Dyson, I don't think it even matters because, Aoki, he's hurt right now, so he's getting a lot more time. But there's just going to be ways for him to get in there, either as a pinch hitter or a pinch runner. And last year he was, in terms of like stolen bases per plate appearance, he was even better than a guy like Rajai Davis. He was off the charts. So he might be more of a guy that you look at to hold on to in like a deeper league because his playing time might start to disintegrate as the season wears on. But for right now, he's probably the best steals pickup out there. And even after that, if he's a guy that you can keep on your bench and sub in and out, there's really nobody better right now in terms of just straight steals.
Okay, fair enough. Now, here's a guy that I want to talk about, but I'm worried about his playing time because he's a rookie, Mookie Betts of the Red Sox.
Yeah, there's a lot of Mookie love this year.
Yes, and, there is. Red Sox Nation has that effect on people.
Yeah, I think that, he stole 46 bases in the minors last year, and he had 29 coming in this year before he got called up. So he's definitely got the speed. He's actually, he's got more stolen bases in the minors than a guy like Alcantara does for the Cubs. But I think they're kind of similar players. The rest of this season, I don't know whether Betts is going to get every day at bats or not. Same thing with Alcantara. But both of them would be definitely good pickups if you needed some steals for your middle infield. And as Rudy always says, the middle infield spots are where you want to put your sagging off guys more
Yeah.
so than your outfield spots.
Absolutely. Speaking of middle infielders, Colton Wong has been a firecracker since coming off the DL. Obviously, he's not going to maintain the kind of power. I think he had 5 home runs this week, if I'm not mistaken. But what can we expect from him steal-wise going forward this year?
I think he's great. I think that he's another guy that had 26, 23 stolen bases the previous 2 years, and then he had 12 coming into today in the majors this year. So I mean, he could be a 25 steal guy, maybe even more in the major leagues as soon as now. So especially in the Cardinals team that's been struggling to find guys like him that can run past couple of years. I think he's going to get the green light and run just as much as a guy maybe like even Betts or Alcantara rest of the season.
Right, fair enough. Okay, give me a deep league stash, maybe a guy who's in the minors right now who could see some possible value later in the season, again, specifically in deeper or AL, NL only leagues.
Well, one of the guys that is out there is Billy Burns with the Athletics.
Yep.
He's got 40-plus steals right now in the minors. He had 70-plus last season. He's in Double-A, but he's a little older. He's like 23, I think, years old. So let's say that a guy like Crisp continues to be nicked up and a guy like Gentry somehow gets a little nicked up. Billy Burns could be somebody that sees a little time later this season, and his speed's going to have an impact in deep leagues as soon as he comes up.
All right, he is Mike at 643ball. He is our Sagnoff. Again, steals ain't got no face. Also, too, over at Razzball.com under the tools tab, we have a great stolen base ratio versus starting pitchers. So if you are looking to stream some potential thefties, you can do that, of course, at Razzball.com under the tools tag. That's it for today. Tomorrow, we're going to be joined by Guru. It's All Guru Wednesday. He's pinch hitting for Gray, of course, because it is the All-Star weekend. Gray's high maintenance. He needs time off. Mike, thanks for joining us today on Razzball Radio on the Fantasy Sports Network. We'll see you all tomorrow. Out of the